AJ, why don't we begin by you telling our listeners a bit about yourself and Lane Transit District?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Doug, for inviting me to speak today and to share my experience in building my relationship with my board. I always find these podcasts very informative in helping me, and I hope that my experience could help to shed some light for somebody else. So to start off by telling you a little bit about myself, I spent just over the last 15 years of my career in middle management, executive management in transportation. For the last 3 years, I am the general manager for Lane Transit District in Eugene, Oregon, and we serve about a population of approximately 300,000. And in a relatively small community and service area, we do still transport over 10 million riders annually. So we're really proud about the work that we do here, and we appreciate the community support in allowing us to serve them. But before I came to Eugene, Oregon, I'm actually originally from the Los Angeles area. And there I've had the opportunity to work for both a municipal transit agency as the director of transportation over that agency, and also at LA Metro in various management positions that I was able to learn how a large system runs and serves a large metropolitan area. So, my career really has been spent in transportation, but I did begin my career in the early 1990s as a bus operator. So I haven't always been in executive management roles. I definitely have had my share of being able to work my way up through the ranks through the various agencies. So I'm really happy to today be in the position that I am. I'm able to lead an award-winning agency in a community that really supports public transportation, Doug. And I know you're familiar with this area and you know how beautiful it is here. So definitely I feel it's an honor to be here.
Actually, I've jogged many miles along the Willamette and across that bridge to the University of Oregon campus, and you are indeed in a beautiful, beautiful part of the country, and I'm sure you're happy there.
I am.
Now, you and I were chatting not long ago, and you mentioned that you're grappling with a real governing challenge. So why don't you tell us a bit about that?
Sure, Doug. Well, as we talked about, Eugene, Oregon is a beautiful place to live. But what originally attracted me to this area was the opportunity to work with the board of directors here at Lane Transit District. When an opening came up in late 2015, the 7 board members that are appointed by the governor here really serve as volunteers for the community. They're able to serve 2 4-year terms if they reapply for those terms. And they're really community leaders who really value public transportation and also value the serving low-income, diverse, and economic development. So as I was sharing with you, some of the reasons that I came here was, of course, for work, but a board of directors that really, really are exemplary community leaders. And one of the challenges that I'm facing in the short 3 years that I've been here is the 7 board members that originally hired me are now, 5 of them will be off my board by the end of December. So as you can see, for any CEO, that would be a very, very scary situation.
A challenging situation, to be sure.
It is, yes, absolutely. Not saying that my new board members won't be just as amazing, but definitely it's starting from scratch, building a whole new relationship. And the 7 original board members who hired me, of course, as has been spoken many times in many of the previous publications, they become stakeholders to your success. They hired you. They want you to be successful. You're a reflection of them. So, of course, you really get that, intimate relationship with them. So it's really sad to see that as either their terms expire or they go on to other opportunities and they won't remain on my board, that I have to start with new board members that bring a whole new energy, but just don't have that original, relationship, that kind of loyalty, that we're now building a whole new relationship as we move on. Currently, I do have 2 of them that are already on board, and I'm excited to really be working with them. But after January, I'll have 3 additional new ones. So it's going to be a
So
really, really big challenge.
5
A
of
total
7
of 7.
in
Yes,
January.
5 of 7 will be new. So only 2 of the original that hired me will remain.
Now, you and I have talked before about your board, but and you can correct me, but if I recall, it's a pretty diverse board, not just elected officials, but you have a variety of kinds of board members from the business community.
Yes, they're business from the business community, from the labor side that's been involved in union leadership, that's been involved in sustainability, environmental issues. So, like I said, my 7 board members are really community leaders well before they came on our board to serve transportation. They normally have to apply for the position and have to have a proven record of leadership here already. So because of that, when they did select me, they really knew that they wanted somebody that that really mirrored their own values and their own energy in serving the community.
So tell us now, you're come January, which isn't too far away from us, you'll have 5 new members on a 7-member board. Tell us a bit about your strategy for building relationships. And do you know who the new members will be? Have they?
I do not know exactly. I know who the applicants are, but I will not know that till sometime in November. The governor's in the process of doing their own vetting process. So because of that, definitely I am preparing currently with the applicants who typically choose to meet with me ahead of time.
Okay.
And so I allow an opportunity for me to sit down with anybody who requested, and we do extend the offer to all the applicants so that they all have an equal opportunity to really understand the role that they're stepping into and to really understand who I am and how we can successfully work here in the community to improve public transportation. So the relationship starts early on, even before they're selected, but I do not know who they will be at this point.
But your plan is one-on-one meetings, or at least 2.
Yes, they are one-on-one meetings. In addition to that, I also provide them some written material. I also provide them additional resources, other people that they can interview to really get a feel. And they also sit down with existing or prior board members to really understand what the role that they are stepping in will require of them, both time-wise, but, energy-wise as well.
Now, you mentioned the governor. Is that right? The governor appoints your board members?
Yes, absolutely. So the governor here, in our state here in Oregon, we're a population of under 4 million. And as you know, that's relatively small. And although 4 million is a lot of people, everybody knows everybody in the state. So the governor definitely comes into town on a regular basis and really has a strong interest in public transportation. She tours our facilities, and I do have the opportunity to interact with her on a regular basis about both transportation issues and different other community issues that affect here our Eugene and Springfield area. So because of that, she has a good handle on that. Excuse me?
This is sort of a, I won't say controversial, but maybe kind of sensitive question I'm going to ask you, but do you have any role in influencing appointments, you and your board? Do you share a profile of the kind of board members you hope are appointed or anything like that? Do you communicate with the governor to shape
We
the
do
composition?
communicate with the governor's office. In the specific conversation about the appointment of board members, I do not speak to the governor directly, but I am interviewed by the governor's staff regarding current issues happening, and I'm also always asked if there's a list of other people that they should be checking references with. So I don't have a yay or a nay about who my future bosses will be, but they definitely do touch bases with me as to kind of how the organization is going, so that they appoint individuals that will really enhance the organization further and continue the good work that we are doing here.
Have you ever shared a profile, say, of qualities of good board members or anything like that with the governor's staff? Kind of profile?
I do not share that with the governor's staff, but I will say that that is a common conversation for the applicants. And that is the most common question I am asked. When I sit down with the applicants, they normally want to know, what is my definition of a good board member?
And
so that is interesting that you asked that. My definition of a good...
What's your answer?
Well, you know, this is definitely, you're putting me on the spot, but I'd be happy to share what I typically say. I typically say that a good board member is one that really represents the values of their sub-district. That it doesn't have to be the popular one of the entire region, but that they're representing their constituents and that they're bringing that voice to us for the ability for us to really make decisions. I also tell them that a good board member understands that they're one vote of 7, and the most influential they can be is by having a cohesive relationship with their fellow board members, so that they're not always going to agree, but in really building the relationship of cohesiveness, even when they disagree and move forward, that really provides me the most valuable input, because I cannot have 7 board members all going in 7 different directions,
right,
because I do not get a majority. But if I can get them to really see their peers as the way to really take action, then they don't focus all their attention on telling me only what to do. They focus their attention at bringing these matters before the board meetings, getting a consensus, and sometimes a downright vote that's needed if it's controversial. That provides me the direction to do the good work that I need to do. So it doesn't have to be that they agree with me, but if they represent their constituents and can get that message successfully to their peers, then the organization can move forward. So I would tell them the most important relationship they're going to have in addition to me is their fellow board members. That's how things get done. You know, I can't just listen to one. So that's a continuous process that happens. And I will say that for the 2 that are on board now, they really have taken that to heart. You know, we have had a few issues here in which they've been very passionate and being, you know, new board members and really energetic. They want to get something done over a specific area, and they look to me, and it's that when I look to them to point them, go to your peers. I can only do it through your peers as a cohesive board. And they've been very successful, and one of them involved actually an increase in a fare. And that one new board member was passionate about, and he was successful. And so I'm happy to say that advice has proven fruitful for us here.
Now, I want to talk about just in a couple more things with you. What you'll be having these one-on-one meetings with all the applicants for the 3 additional seats, right?
Yes.
And so over in the coming months, you'll be meeting with each of the applicants being considered by the governor's office. What's your objective in those meetings? What's the agenda look like?
Well, my first objective is to ensure that the candidates feel that the time that I am spending with them, that they are getting the same opportunity that any other candidate is getting, that they feel valued in that role, that they know I'm sitting there with them genuinely to provide them equal access to the same information. And it's important for me to communicate with them the level of commitment that will be required from them so that they don't step into a role and say, if had I known X, I would not have signed up for this. It's important that once they get on the board, they don't have culture shock. So that's another reason why I usually provide them the names of existing board members or past board members, because it's only a board member who can tell another board member what the experience really is. And so I really want to be a resource to them and for them to know that that's the role that I will serve them throughout their tenure here as board members, that I am a resource to them, and that although there is 7 of them, that each one of them gets my individual attention equally. So, you know, it starts with the applicant pool, that the first time they met me, that they felt that I valued them as community leaders and really took them seriously, that they could be my boss. And some, of course, have. So, you know, I just want them to know what they're stepping into and feel that they're being treated with the level of respect that they deserve, signing up for such a big role.
Now, if I were one of the applicants, and, well, fortunate for you, I'm not, but if I were one of the applicants, and I ask you, what's the biggest challenge I'm going to be facing as a board member? What's going to be the toughest aspect of the job? What would your answer be?
My answer to the applicants is typically you're going to have to make decisions that are not going to be popular by all. By the very virtue of what your job is when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And not being popular is sometimes a very uncomfortable position for board members. So what I normally tell them about that is, you know, the only way for you to really feel comfortable with that is to know that you stand by your decision. And my job is to have prepared you with all the information you have to have made that decision, and to know that you are representing the values that you bring and why you were selected, and that you're representing the majority of your constituents, and to accept that it's not going to be all of your constituents. And normally the ones that support you are not the ones that come to the board meetings. It's the ones that you have to face that don't. And that's something that, you know, we can work through. And what we have done is we talk about, could something have been avoided or prevented? But in many cases, the answer is no. So the board members have to be able to feel comfortable with sometimes having to say no to something that is not, you know, you can never please the majority. So I think that's the tough role of a board member. The buck stops with them. I get to make recommendations and present information and carry it out, but I don't get to face the community in the way that they do. So I really am sensitive to that challenge that they do face.
Well, let me ask you have 2 new people who've come on, and you got 3 more coming on in January. What's your onboarding process? What are the key elements of getting people fully on board?
Well, I've changed our onboarding process. Our onboarding process used to be about 8 to 12 hours. That was broken up into several days. And it really was a full kind of initiation into how transit works in our community. And as I saw that, it was overwhelming, even for me, a transit professional. And I do this, you know, have done this for over 20 years. So I found that a little overwhelming. So then I changed it to say, my goal is to make them successful in their role. And what does that entail? And number one, it's entailed is providing them an orientation about what their role is, the major high-level information as far as the major projects, the major data points, ridership, big picture information, and then to really provide them a more in-depth orientation about the projects as they come along. So as they come along, if I'm needing them to know something, what I do is I basically say, if you recall, we mentioned this project to, go over what that project is. And at that point, I then walk them through the project versus giving them this 12 hours months in advance that they're not going to remember. It's saying, how do I make the information they need to be successful digestible? And how do I also get information about what their specific interest? Every board member, although they have the same information in front of them, it's different information that really draws their eye. Somebody may really be interested in how we're serving low-income housing individual. Somebody may be interested on how we're doing about our environmental sustainability performance. Somebody might be interested in how our employees doing. Another board member is very interested on how we're doing fiscally, how are we according to our budget. And just giving them the typical budgetary numbers is not enough. They really want to know what makes that number up. So instead of providing this huge, overwhelming overview, it's providing them a 2-hour orientation for onboarding, big picture, giving them a preview of what the big projects and decisions will be coming in the next 6 months, and then really figuring out how I break that down at every meeting, or how do I meet with them in small groups. This upcoming Saturday, I will be meeting with 3 board members aside. I don't need anything from them. We call them coffee clutches. I sit down with 3 of them, and we'll talk about the 2 next big topics that LTD will be facing. And we talk about them in big picture, and I allow them to ask questions that they may not feel comfortable asking among their full peers.
3. These are not one-on-one
Yes.
meetings. How do you determine?
Sometimes it's one-on-one.
Pardon?
If sometimes they need a one-on-one, they'll request it. But sometimes the groups of 3 allow them not to only build a relationship with me, but that cohesiveness amongst themselves. We're just having a cup of coffee.
How do you choose the 3?
We choose them. We rotate them.
Okay.
We just rotate them. If they haven't met with somebody, we'll say, next time I'll pair you up with someone new. Or sometimes they'll recommend somebody who's, I really haven't spent much time and don't know about this board member. Can you pick us two to be part of that? And it builds the cohesiveness of the board, and it builds a level of trust in me that I am a resource to them. So we do that. So it's not this big fancy that I could give you this big orientation. It's a small orientation that is a big picture overview, and then, of course, it's bringing them the information in a digestible way.
Well, it's a great idea to do that. You call them coffee clutches.
We call them coffee clutches. And I will say, I don't want to take credit for that. I will say that, I don't know if I'm embarrassed or proud to say that I've taken a lot of these recommendations from reading the Board Savvy CEO. When I first came on board,
You mean my book?
I have. I really do. And I go through the articles and see which are relevant, especially when I'm facing a new situation. So that was probably one of the tidbits that I took from some of the lessons that I learned, is how to really be a resource to them. And so that's how we selected that process here, and my staff knows it.
Obviously, governance in your relationship with your board members is a top priority. Let me ask a concluding question, and I know what your schedule's like, AJ, so I know you are making a big commitment talking with me, so I'll ask you one final question, and then you can get on with your day. It's obvious this is a top priority to you. How much time would you say you spend on the average directly interacting with your board members, either in small groups, as a whole, one-on-one? How much time do you devote to the
I would
interaction?
say in a 1-week period, the average is about 4 hours.
Okay.
It's only about 4 hours. Those 4 hours are normally, whether it's a 2-hour board meeting and then 2 additional hours somewhere else with smaller groups or individual one-on-ones. So a lot of it is making the most out of the time that I have with them. But what I will say, and I think this is very important, that a lot of my day is spent is out in the community. And the board almost feels like that time that I spent in the community with other community leaders or in volunteering or serving on other boards is almost time spent with them. Because when they're at the grocery store, when they're somewhere, and somebody says, oh, I just saw AJ at this meeting. Oh, AJ just did this. Oh, she's helping, build this, or she's volunteering here. They almost feel that it's the rest of the time it's other people communicating to them about where I am and what I'm doing. So those 4 hours that I spent with them are quality hours, and all the other interaction is through others. And that's what they tell me is, well, we know you were here. We know you had a late night here. We know you were on your 4th of July out there selling entrance tickets for the local utility company that provides this. We heard you were here. So they almost feel that through my engagement in the community, they are representing and engaging with me. And
how much time do you spend, AJ, in the external relations area generally?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, gosh. It's got to be anywhere from the neighborhood of 20 to 30 hours per week.
Whoa.
Externally.
Okay.
It is a lot of time.
That matches, though, the experience of CEOs in other sectors, including the for-profit corporate sector, and that you probably have to spend at least 50% or more of your time in the external world to succeed.
I do, and whether it's with the elected officials in the community, whether it's with nonprofits, business leaders, volunteer work, it's just any place that LTD is out in the community has a booth. I normally do not staff the booth, but I definitely make appearances and walk around and do a lot of meet and greets. So that's a lot of the work that I do. So although it appears that maybe 4 hours is not enough to spend with my board, they feel that they really know what I'm doing all the time. And that is something that I know that when I am out in the community, I am a reflection of the work and the direction they give me. So I think it's very usual that most CEOs do spend a lot of their time like I do.
Well, AJ, I really appreciate you taking the time to tell us about what's going on at Lane Transit District in governance, and particularly how you're managing the onboarding of a significant new contingent on the board, 5 of your 7 members by January. And I think we're going to need to revisit you down the pike and see how things are going post-January. Meanwhile, thanks a lot for taking the time. Pardon?
I'm more than happy to share my experiences and be able to help anyone else that may be facing a similar situation.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your time. Have a great day.